All right, let's dive straight into this explainer. We're looking at how the world's oldest and largest public broadcaster is quite literally reinventing itself to survive. We're talking, of course, about the BBC. For over a century, this massive institution has shaped not just British culture, but the entire global information landscape. But right now, well, it's standing at the edge of a cliff. It's facing an era of artificial intelligence that threatens to completely upend how we consume reality itself.
Just think about this number for a second. 447 million people. That's the BBC's weekly global reach. I mean, that's more than the entire population of the US tuning in every single week. It's an incredible scale of influence. Through its domestic services and a world service broadcasting in over 40 languages, it reaches a massive chunk of the planet. But here's the catch. Maintaining that massive reach, and more importantly, the trust that comes with it, it's never been harder than it is right now.
So we've got a fascinating roadmap for today. We'll kick things off with a century of broadcasting, dive into the trust crisis, explore radical transparency and verify, talk about reaching the digital audience, and finally tackle the AI battlefield.
Section 1. A century of broadcasting. To truly grasp why the BBC's current pivot is absolutely crucial, we really need to look at its bedrock values. Let's wind the clock back. The BBC was founded way back in 1922, launched its Empire service, what we now know as the World Service, in 1932, and actually pioneered the digital age with BDC Online in 1997. Fast forward to 2026, the dawn of the AI era. This marks a huge shift, the appointment of a former Google executive, Matt Brittin, as Director General. So this isn't just a list of dates, right? It's a story of constant, absolutely necessary evolution.
And since those early 1920s days, the BBC has been guided by this one simple mantra: inform, educate, and entertain. It's named after their first general manager, John Reith, and it was designed to serve the public, not to chase commercial profit or, those lowest common denominator clicks. The BBC was built from day one to be a pillar of civic life, funded directly by the public, totally free from advertiser influence.
Moving into Section 2, the trust crisis. Because today, that century-old mission, it's under immense pressure from massive financial cuts and an information ecosystem that is completely fractured. In April 2026, the BBC had to announce massive layoffs. We're talking up to 2,000 jobs, just to save a staggering £500 million. It really highlights the sheer financial and existential pressure they're sweating under right now. The traditional TV broadcast model is shrinking fast, and folks are actually canceling their TV licenses in record numbers simply because viewing habits have completely changed.
But that financial crisis, it parallels an even deeper structural crisis. It poses a really critical question. Who decides what news actually means? Back in the day, we just chose between different journalistic narratives. Then social media came along and trapped us in algorithmic filter bubbles. And now? Well, now artificial intelligence threatens to just distill the news into a single, synthesized response, entirely bypassing the human journalists who actually went out and gathered the facts. Which brings us to this wildly alarming Ofcom statistic: 30%. That is the proportion of adults who now rely on AI summaries for their information when they search online. Think about that for a second. Nearly a third of the population is getting their worldview from a machine that's just summarizing the hard work of others, often without giving any credit. It's completely redefining how you and I interact with reality. But there's a really fascinating nuance here. According to the Reuters Institute, only a tiny slice, just about 6%, actively go out of their way to seek out AI tools like ChatGPT directly for their news. The real issue is that the big tech giants are just embedding AI summaries straight into their search engines anyway. It takes carefully reported, verified journalism and just churns it into raw material for algorithms.
Section 3. Radical transparency and verify. To combat this wild crisis of truth, the BBC isn't just asking for our trust anymore, they're fundamentally changing how they operate to earn it.
And that brings us to a massive shift in how they do journalism, a concept they're calling assertive impartiality. Fancy term, right? But what it really means is they're pulling back the curtain to literally show us their homework. Instead of a news anchor just handing down the facts from on high, reporters are now taking us step by step through the evidence. They're proving to you exactly how they know what they know.
A huge part of this was launching BBC Verify back in 2023. Think of this unit as the ultimate frontline defense against deepfakes and massive disinformation campaigns. Whether they're analyzing some viral video to see if it's AI generated or tracking bizarre propaganda networks on TikTok,
Verify's experts literally walk the audience through the metadata and geolocation data. They are bringing the actual fact-checking process right into the broadcast.
You can really see this playbook in action with their award-winning Africa Eye investigation. They combined open-source analysis of social media right alongside traditional on-the-ground reporting and gutsy undercover journalism. By stacking all these methods, they successfully tracked down and exposed a whole network that was exploiting young children in rural Malawi to create racist viral videos for Chinese social media. It's a perfect example of how rigorous, transparent journalism can still slice right through the digital noise.
Moving on to Section 4, reaching the digital audience. Because let's be honest, transparent journalism only matters if people actually see it, which requires a totally new game plan.
Now, despite all the political noise and the constant claims of bias you hear from every side, the BBC still holds a massive, dominant lead when it comes to public trust. A whopping 47% of UK adults still name it as their most trusted source for accurate news, vastly outpacing the nearest competitor at just 8%. So the foundation is solid. The real headache? Getting this highly trusted content in front of younger audiences, who definitely aren't turning to the BBC first.
To fix that gap, they're basically abandoning the old idea of waiting for people to tune in to a traditional TV channel or click onto their homepage. Instead, they're dropping their journalism straight into the digital spaces where younger audiences are already hanging out. We're talking bespoke, high-quality news produced specifically for TikTok and Instagram. They're launching targeted newsletters to drop news right into your inbox, bypassing those tricky social media algorithms completely. Plus, they're leaning heavily into a streaming-first approach on the BBC iPlayer.
Which brings us to Section 5. The AI battlefield. This is the ultimate do-or-die battleground for the BBC, figuring out how to integrate generative AI without losing their soul in the process.
To navigate this minefield, the BBC made a massive strategic move in March 2026. They appointed Matt Brittin as Director General. Bringing in a former Google executive is a huge signal. It shows the BBC knows they can't just be a traditional broadcaster anymore. They have to master platforms, scale, and digital audiences to survive. They literally need leadership that intimately understands the architecture of the internet and artificial intelligence from the inside out.
And the stakes seriously couldn't be higher. Just think about the stark contrast we're dealing with here. Traditional journalism relies on transparent sources, human judgment, and offering a wide plurality of views. Generative AI? Well, it relies on completely hidden algorithms. It synthesizes the messy world into single authoritative-sounding answers, and as we know, it frequently hallucinates, or just flat-out makes things up. If AI becomes the one and only gatekeeper of information, the nuance of real human reporting is totally wiped out.
So to protect the whole news ecosystem, the BBC is finally drawing a line in the sand. They're demanding fair licensing frameworks, and they are flat-out refusing to let tech giants just scrape a century's worth of their premium journalism to train AI models for free. But beyond that, the BBC wants to position its vast, trusted archive as a foundational orchestration layer, basically a rock-solid baseline of facts that AI models can query, rather than leaving all that power solely in the hands of Silicon Valley billionaires.
As a recent Guardian editorial pointed out, impartial, accurate news is essential for democratic stability. And honestly, that hits the nail on the head. This isn't just a business story about a media company trying to survive. If the BBC fails to adapt, if it just gets swallowed whole by the AI revolution, we risk losing a vital pillar of civic life. Because at the end of the day, reliable shared information is the absolute bedrock of a functioning democracy.
So I want to leave you with this final thought to chew on. When a machine can instantly generate infinite content at the push of a button, what does it truly mean to inform, educate, and entertain? The BBC's answer to that question won't just determine its own survival over the next century, it's probably going to shape how every single one of us interacts with reality itself. Thanks so much for diving into this explainer with me today. Keep questioning what you read, always check those sources, and stay curious.